Okay, let's unpack this because my mission today is to translate this seemingly dry legal document into what it actually is, which is a fascinating exploration of how humans successfully manage these massive, multi-million-dollar mega projects without them just descending into absolute anarchy.
Which they easily could.
Oh, in a heartbeat. So you might not be a civil engineer, but by the end of this deep dive, you will seriously never look at a construction site the same way again.
No, you really won't. Because, well, before a single shovel even hits the dirt, this highly sophisticated psychological and economic game is set up.
Yeah.
What we are looking at here is a masterclass in assigning risk. Because when you have hundreds of millions of dollars on the line, every potential disaster has to be accounted for.
Like what kind of disasters?
I mean, anything, from a delayed shipment of steel to a sudden change in global economics or even discovering an ancient ruin underground.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, every single one of those risks has to be assigned a home. Someone has to hold the bag. And this book dictates exactly who that is and, more importantly, the logic behind why.
That makes a lot of sense. So to understand how these huge projects avoid collapsing into endless, litigious arguments, we first need to understand the cast of characters.
Right, the players.
Yeah, because according to the text, there is this absolute hierarchy of truth that governs their reality on site. It's essentially a triad of power.
Exactly. The Red Book establishes three main entities in this ecosystem. First, you have the employer.
The one with the money.
Precisely. This is the person or the corporation or maybe the government body named in the contract who owns the site, wants the project built, and ultimately pays those massive bills.
Okay, got it.
Then you have the contractor. This is the entity whose tender has been accepted by the employer to actually execute and complete the works.
And just to clarify the terminology here for anyone not in the industry, the tender is essentially the contractor's official bid to do the job for a specific amount of money, right?
Yes, exactly.
So they are the boots on the ground, people with the hard hats and the bulldozers.
That is correct. They bring the design to life. But the third entity, and this is where the dynamic is incredibly complex, that is the engineer.
Ah.
The engineer is appointed by the employer to administer the contract day to day. Clause 3 of the Red Book actually outlines their specific duties and authority.
So they're kind of running the show on site.
Basically, yeah. They are the ones out there issuing instructions, certifying the payments so the contractor actually gets that cash flow, and generally just keeping the whole machine moving forward.
But the project is built on more than just handshakes and nods between these three, right? Because there is a literal mountain of paperwork.
Oh, mountains.
And I was reading that Clause 1.5 outlines something called the priority of documents.
Yes.
Which I found super interesting because if there's an ambiguity or a discrepancy, like, say, the blueprint drawing shows one thing, but the written specs say something completely different, there is a strict pecking order to figure out what the actual truth is.
Because the contract inherently anticipates human error,
Yeah.
It knows there will be confusion. So the highest level of truth is the contract agreement itself.
Okay.
If that exists, it beats everything else. Below that is the letter of acceptance, followed by the letter of tender. Then we get to the particular conditions, and those actually override the general conditions.
Wait, before you go further down that list, what is the practical difference between particular and general conditions?
Ah, good question. So think of the general conditions as the standard boilerplate rules of the FIDIC Red Book.
Like the default settings.
Exactly. The foundational laws of physics for any project using this book. The particular conditions, on the other hand, are the custom bespoke rules written specifically for this one unique site.
Oh, I see.
So if you are building a dam in a region with very unique environmental laws, you write those into the particular conditions, and they trump the generic boilerplate text.
That makes total sense.
Yeah. And then below those conditions, the hierarchy continues down to the specification, the drawings, and finally the schedules and any other documents forming the contract.
It's exactly like the rules of a complex tabletop board game.
Yes.
Like, you have the main heavy rule book, and then you have the little custom reference card they give you for a specific scenario.
Right.
If the reference card says you can move 3 spaces, but the giant rule book says you can only move 2, the rule book chumps the reference card every single time.
That is a perfect analogy. And that dynamic prevents weeks of arguing on site because the tiebreaker is pre-programmed into the system.
Right, you just check the list.
Exactly. If a drawing shows a wall built out of standard brick, but the higher priority specification document says it must be built of reinforced concrete, you follow the specification. No debate.
So the engineer just looks at it, makes the call, and they keep building.
The engineer simply issues a clarification based on that priority, and the work continues without grinding to a halt.
Okay, but hold on. There's a massive conflict of interest built right into this triad you just described.
You caught that.
Yeah. You said the employer hires and pays the engineer, right?
Yes.
But Clause 3.5 says the engineer has to make a fair determination when the employer and contractor argue. How is the engineer supposed to be neutral against the person who literally signs their paychecks?
Well, what's fascinating here is that this specific tension is really the heartbeat of the entire FIDIC contract.
It seems impossible.
It's definitely tricky. Clause 3.5 explicitly dictates that whenever the engineer has to agree or determine any matter, they must first consult with both parties in an endeavor to reach an agreement.
So try to get them to just play nice first.
Right. But if they simply can't agree, the engineer must step back and make a fair determination in accordance with the contract, taking due regard of all relevant circumstances.
But human nature dictates that you favor the boss. I mean, if it's a $1 million dispute, the employer expects their hired gun to shoot in their direction.
They might expect it, absolutely. But the entire ecosystem relies on the engineer's professional neutrality in that moment.
How so?
Well, you have to remember, the engineer isn't just a low-level employee. They are a highly qualified, often independent, professional entity or consulting firm.
Oh, I see. They have a reputation to uphold.
Exactly. If they act with extreme bias and start punishing the contractor unfairly just to please the employer, the system breaks down immediately.
The contractor just wouldn't accept it.
Right. The contractor will dispute the determination, and the contract will rapidly devolve into a formal dispute resolution, like bringing in a dispute adjudication board or even going to international arbitration.
Nobody wants to go to arbitration.
Nobody. Because arbitration means lawyers, and lawyers mean massive delays, and delays mean catastrophic financial losses for the employer.
Yeah, an asset that isn't finished is an asset that isn't generating revenue.
Exactly. So the engineer actually acts as a critical referee to keep the game moving on the field so it doesn't end up frozen in a courtroom.
Okay, so the engineer acts as a referee to keep the project out of court. I get that. But what happens when the dispute isn't between the people, but between the people and the planet?
Ah, yes. The ground itself.
Right. You can have the most impartial engineer in the world, but that doesn't change the fact that your bulldozer just hit a subterranean boulder the size of a minivan.
Very true.
How does a rigid paper contract handle the unpredictable physical reality of planet Earth?
This is where risk allocation becomes very, very tangible. Let's look at Clause 4.12, which covers unforeseeable physical conditions.
Oh, okay.
This encompasses natural physical conditions, artificial obstructions, or even pollutants that the contractor hits while digging or building.
Right, and I saw Clause 4.24 takes us even further with fossils.
Yes.
The text literally says all fossils, coins, articles of value or antiquity, and structures of archaeological interest basically belong to the employer.
They do. And if a contractor encounters adverse physical conditions or fossils that they consider to be unforeseeable, they have a strict protocol. They must give notice to the engineer as soon as practicable.
So they can't just keep digging and pretend they didn't see it.
No, they have to immediately stop work in that area, protect the finding, and wait for instructions.
Wow.
And if the engineer agrees that these conditions truly were unforeseeable, it triggers a really powerful mechanism.
Which is?
The contractor can be granted an extension of time and crucial payment for the extra cost incurred by the delay.
It's like you're digging a swimming pool in your backyard, you hit a rock, and suddenly you uncover a fully intact T-Rex skull.
Yeah, a massive discovery.
Obviously, you have to stop the backhoe, but unforeseeable is an incredibly subjective word. I mean, the employer is always going to say, you should have known there were rocks or artifacts there. You're a professional.
And that argument happens all the time, which is why the definition of unforeseeable is the linchpin of the whole arrangement here.
How do they define it?
Clause 1.1.6.8 defines it specifically as not reasonably foreseeable by an experienced contractor by the date for submission of the tender. This single phrase does a lot of heavy lifting. It forces the contractor to do their homework.
Before they even bid.
Right. Under Clause 4.10, the employer provides site data, things like hydrological and subsurface data they already have. But the contractor is deemed to have inspected and examined the site and been satisfied with the risks before submitting their bid.
So they can't just blindly bid the absolute lowest price to win the job and then act shocked when they hit standard groundwater in a swamp.
Exactly.
Yep.
It prevents willful ignorance. If a standard soil sample or a basic geological survey would have revealed the issue, the contractor eats the cost.
Because an experienced contractor in that region should have known better.
Yes. But on the flip side, it also protects them from true acts of geographic sabotage.
Like the T-Rex skull.
Or if they find a buried, unmapped concrete bunker from World War II. Or a Roman ruin, things that truly couldn't have been anticipated by standard pre-bid diligence. It's not about punishing the builder, you know? It's about sharing the unpredictable risks of the physical world. The employer owns the land, so ultimately, they own the deeply hidden surprises inside it.
That makes total sense. So, okay, once the T-Rex skull is safely packed up for a museum and the project resumes, the lifeblood of the operation kind of shifts, isn't it?
It does.
Because these mega projects take years. A new airport or a massive dam might take a decade to finish. And the economy doesn't just stand still.
Definitely not.
So how do these contracts adapt dynamically to economic realities that might completely change while the foundation is still being poured?
This is where we start seeing some brilliant financial mechanisms built right into the text. The first one is in clause 13.2, which is called value engineering.
Value engineering, what is that exactly?
It's a proactive lever. At any time, the contractor can submit a written proposal, which, if adopted, will accelerate completion, reduce the cost of executing the works, or just improve the efficiency of the completed project.
So if the contractor finds a cheaper, faster way to build the roof without compromising structural integrity or safety, they just present it to the engineer.
Right. But the true brilliance is in the incentive structure.
Okay.
If the engineer approves a design change that reduces the contract value, the contractor doesn't just get a pat on the back for being clever.
I would hope not.
The text actually specifies they get a fee, and that fee is 50% of the difference in the reduction of the contract value.
Wait, half?
Yes, half.
That is a massive incentive. Just to put scale to this, in a $500 million bridge project, if a contractor figures out some brilliant precast concrete method that saves $20 million in labor and materials, the engineer literally writes them a bonus check for $10 million.
They do. It completely flips human greed into a tool for efficiency.
That's amazing.
It really aligns the financial interests of both parties. Instead of the contractor just padding the bill or sticking to a slow, inefficient design just because it's what was originally drawn up, they are deeply financially motivated to innovate and save the employer money. It is a total win-win embedded right in the contract.
It's like finding a brilliant shortcut on a cross-country road trip, and your friend who's paying for gas actually gives you half the cash you just saved them.
Exactly.
Okay, so that covers innovations they can control.
Right.
But what about the macroeconomic nightmare scenarios they can't control? What about inflation?
Inflation. The project killer.
Because I saw something in clause 13.8, the adjustments for changes in cost, and honestly, it looked like a sudden pop quiz in an advanced calculus class.
It does look scary at first glance.
There is a full algebraic formula sitting right in the middle of this legal document.
Adjustment formula, yes. Pn equals A plus B times ln over lo plus C times n over EO and so on.
Yeah, that's the one.
It looks intimidating to non-engineers, but it's an incredibly elegant solution to an existential threat.
How so?
Well, rather than forcing the contractor to guess what inflation will be over the next 5 years and bake that massive speculative risk into their initial bid, which would make every project unsustainably expensive, by the way, the contract uses this formula. It adjusts payments based on actual economic reality as it happens.
Okay, let's break this down. Looking at this formula, Pn equals A plus B times ln over lo. I'm assuming A is a fixed coefficient that never changes, like the contractor's overhead or their base profit margin.
You've decoded it perfectly.
Yeah.
Yes, the Pn is the adjustment multiplier applied to the contract value for a specific period. The A is indeed the non-adjustable portion.
Okay, got it.
Then you have B, C, D, which are weightings for specific cost elements.
Like what?
So B might represent the proportion of project cost dedicated to labor. C could be for heavy equipment. D for raw materials like steel or lumber.
And the fractions, the ln over lo.
Those are the actual indices. ln is the current cost index for labor in the current period, usually published by a central bank or government body.
Okay.
And lo was the base cost index for labor back on the exact date the tender was originally submitted. So it basically tracks the real-time ratio of how much costs have fluctuated.
Wow. So to put this in a real-world high-stakes scenario, imagine a contractor bidding on a massive 5-year airport terminal in late 2019.
Oh, perfect example.
Suddenly, the 2020 pandemic hits. Global supply chains freeze, and the price of lumber or steel quadruples overnight.
It happened all over the world.
Right. And without this formula, the contractor is just locked into 2019 prices. They immediately go bankrupt, they abandon the site, and the airport never gets built.
Exactly. Everyone loses.
But with this formula, if steel goes up 300%, the Eln over low ratio for steel becomes 3 multiplied by its weight in the project, and the payment automatically scales up.
It acts as an automatic shock absorber.
That's incredible.
It literally saves the project from total collapse. By tying specific inputs to actual current economic indices, the contract flexes instead of snapping.
Flexes instead of snapping, I like that.
It really shows how modern mega projects rely just as much on financial engineering as they do on structural engineering. It transforms a static paper contract into a living, breathing financial entity that dynamically responds to the global market.
Okay, so this living, breathing financial entity keeps the project afloat through pandemics, inflation, and T-Rex bones.
Exactly.
But eventually you reach the finish line, or at least you try to. How do they actually untangle from all this? Because in a project this massive, done isn't just handing over the keys and high-fiving.
No, definitely not.
Breaking up is hard to do.
It is a highly choreographed legal untangling. Let's look at Clause 10, employers taking over.
Okay.
The work isn't considered complete just because the last brick is laid. The contractor has to officially apply for it, and the engineer must inspect the works and issue a formal taking over certificate.
What does that actually...
It states the exact date the works were completed in accordance with the contract, minus maybe some minor outstanding work that doesn't prevent the building from being safely used.
But even after that certificate is issued, the contractor isn't completely off the hook, right? Because then we hit Clause 11, the defects notification period.
You're right. The taking over certificate is a critical milestone because it shifts the risk of the property, like fire or flood damage, to the employer.
Okay.
But yes, it triggers the defects notification period. This is a designated window, often a year or more, calculated from the date of taking over.
And what happens during that year?
During this time, the contractor is legally obligated to return to the site and fix any defective work or remedy damage entirely at their own cost if they caused it by poor materials or shoddy workmanship.
It's essentially a very high-stakes warranty period.
That's a good way to put it.
Like, if you buy a new phone and the screen goes glitchy because the manufacturer messed up, they have to fix it for free.
Exactly.
Only in this case, the screen is a 50-story glass facade on a skyscraper.
Slightly more expensive to fix.
Just a bit. And only after this period is over and every single glitch is fixed, does the engineer issue the performance certificate under Clause 11.9.
Right.
That piece of paper marks the true end of the contractor's obligations.
The performance certificate is the absolute finish line. It is the final severance of the core liability.
Okay, let me pose a tricky scenario from the text, though.
All right, hit me.
Look at Clause 10.2 regarding taking over parts of the works. What if the employer gets impatient?
Which happens a lot.
I bet. Let's say it's a massive, sprawling shopping mall. The east wing is completely done, but the west wing is still an active, messy construction zone.
Okay.
The employer just decides, hey, I want to open the east wing to the public and start collecting rent from stores before the taking over certificate is officially issued for the whole project. Doesn't that technically mean they've accepted it, flaws and all?
The contract anticipates human impatience flawlessly. Yes. Under Clause 10.2, if the employer uses any part of the works, that specific part is deemed to have been taken over from the date they started using it.
Interesting.
And the engineer is then legally required to issue a taking over certificate just for that specific part.
So the liability for the east wing immediately shifts to the employer.
Exactly. The responsibility for the care of that part passes to the employer. But here's the most crucial detail.
What's that?
If the employer's early use causes the contractor to suffer delays or incur extra costs on the rest of the project, say, because it can't easily move cranes through the active east wing anymore, the contractor can claim for those extra costs.
Oh, wow.
Furthermore, the delay damages, which is the massive daily financial penalty the contractor pays if they are late finishing the overall project, those are actually reduced proportionally.
That is so smart. Because if the employer is already getting economic value from half the building, they shouldn't be able to penalize the contractor at the full 100% rate.
Precisely. The contract has a built-in mathematical mechanism to instantly rebalance the scales of risk.
It's constantly rebalancing. But what if things go entirely off the rails?
Define off the rail.
Like beyond a delayed wing of a mall. I'm talking complete bankruptcy. Or the contractor just walks off and abandons the site entirely.
That brings us to Clause 15, termination by employer.
The nuclear option.
It really is. The financial chaos of a half-finished skyscraper is staggering. Equipment is left on site, subcontractors aren't paid, the elements are degrading the exposed steel.
A total nightmare.
But even this nightmare scenario is governed by a strict process. Unless it's an extreme case like formal bankruptcy or proven bribery, the employer can't just fire the contractor in a fit of rage.
They can't.
No. They must first issue a notice to correct under Clause 15.1.
So it's a legal shot across the bow.
Precisely. It gives the contractor a specified reasonable time to actually fix their failure. It acts as a vital cooling-off period to prevent catastrophic knee-jerk lawsuits.
But what if they just ignore it?
If the contractor still fails, or if they have clearly abandoned the works completely, the employer can then terminate the contract, expel the contractor from the site, and use whatever equipment and materials are left behind to finish the job themselves or with a new builder.
Wow.
It is brutal, but it is orderly.
It really is a complete life cycle, from the first priority of the paperwork down to the final termination or the final performance certificate.
It is a closed-loop system designed entirely to govern chaos and keep human nature in check.
Well, let's bring this full circle. The next time you look up at that towering crane or drive over that massive suspension bridge, remember that you aren't just looking at concrete and steel.
Not at all.
You are looking at the physical manifestation of the FED Red Book. You are looking at a masterclass in human psychology, economic adaptability, and the careful, negotiated balancing of immense real-world risks.
Every being is backed by a clause, and every delay is governed by a formula.
But I want to leave you with a provocative thought to mull over. We've seen how heavily this 1999 document relies on human judgment. The fair determination of the engineer or the assumptions of the experienced contractor when analyzing soil data.
All right, very human elements.
But as we move into an era where artificial intelligence can predict soil composition with near-perfect accuracy, and algorithms might soon generate all the site data instantly, what happens when the machines become the experienced contractor?
Oh, that's a wild thought.
If the AI hallucinates the data and says the ground is completely clear, but the excavator still hits a massive hidden obstruction, who pays for the T-Rex skull then?
I guess we'll need a new clause for that.
Something to think about the next time you pass a construction site. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.